This is This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition, and today we're looking at Revival 250. This is scheduled for May 3rd this year at VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena in Jacksonville. The plan is to live stream nationally, and so today we're talking about what it is, why Jacksonville, and then some of the planning and readiness behind an issue or an event of this scale. Our guest today, Chris Widener, Revival 250 organizer, and much more. And Jason Masters is with us from Bold City Church. So, Chris, for the record, what's your role with Revival 250, and then what is it? Let's get into this.
So a few years ago, I was one of the top motivational speakers in America, 26 books, et cetera. I was writing a book on capitalism. And I just had this sense I was supposed to write a book about revival. So I wrote a book called The Coming American Revival. And I really believe that most people think we have a political problem. But I don't believe that our political problem is really our problem. I believe that our problem in America is a spiritual problem. And that creates the political problem. And so as I look at everything and where we're at in America and these kinds of things, I was like, faith has always been so important in America. And we're sort of floating nowadays. We need to have a message that says we need to let the church be the church, live out those kinds of values, and that's a good thing for America. So as part of the 250th anniversary of America, we're doing Revival 250.
Yeah, that's what you explained to me on the phone, that connection with the 250th birthday for the United States. Jason, for the record, what about you? You're connected, obviously, but tell me about your role as of today. Is it organizing, mobilizing churches, the local stuff? What is it?
Yeah, it's to help mobilize local churches to be at the event, but really prayer leading into revival. I don't think we ever see revival without prayer.
Okay, so for listeners who haven't heard of it, now describe what is Revival 250, maybe for each of you. One sentence, what is it, and then what should people expect when we get to May 3rd?
I'll put it in one sentence, and that is, it's a call to the church to live the values that they say they believe in. There's a Bible verse that says, walk worthy of the calling that you've received. And from my perspective, a lot of Christians are Christians on Sunday mornings or Wednesday night, but they don't let it saturate the rest of their life. And that's the mission of Revival 250.
Help me understand some of this. You just described, hey, I'm a motivational speaker across the country. I think this is really important for people. Why Jacksonville? Why come to this corner of the United States and say, this is where we're going to plant the flag for this event?
Well, as Jason mentioned, it's all about prayer, right? And we prayed and prayed and prayed, where should we hold this event? And we could not get away from Jacksonville. It just like everybody kept saying Jacksonville. What was interesting though was when I finally got here and we started, I've been coming down here a week a month for eight months now. And then you hear the story of the French Huguenots. 1562, French Protestants left France because of their persecution. They were the first Christians to land on the shores of America just outside of Jacksonville. They built a colony of 700 people just outside Jacksonville. They started winning converts, the first converts in America outside of Jacksonville. And then the King of Spain didn't like that the Protestants got here first. He sent 3 boatloads full of mercenaries, slaughtered first Christian martyrs just outside of Jacksonville. And I went, that's why Jacksonville. It's coming back to the original reason that people came here was to be able to worship the Lord.
Yeah, I live in St. Augustine, so that Spanish influence and the Catholics arriving and all of that. Certainly, there's a big component of what happened from a spiritual perspective or for some of those goals on why our area was established. All right, so let's talk about the scale, the purpose, maybe of the 250 connection that we've touched on. You're calling it, Chris, the largest single-day revival meeting in American history.
That's our goal.
How does that happen? Because we can fit a certain amount of people inside the VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena.
Yep, with our setup, there will be 11,600 people there. But we partnered with Pray.com. They have the largest prayer app in the world, 26 million downloads. So it will be streamed through there. So we have access to 26 million. But we're also going to do a live stream to homes. People can purchase a home live stream and have their neighbors, friends, church members, whatever. We're going to live stream to churches. We're going to live stream to colleges and universities, to prisons and to military bases all around the world. We're also going to have an international stream available. So we're expecting somewhere upwards of about 50 million people to see this.
Jason, when you hear that scale, what's the first readiness issue Jacksonville churches need to solve to be ready for this in May?
Well, for me, I think that's a beautiful thing when you're thinking about the big scale. But my mind goes to, what are we going to do to keep this going in our city after May 3rd? And so, and I think that just requires a spirit of unity amongst all the churches that profess Christ as Lord in the city. And so that's where my mind is like, how do we get all the shepherds in the city in the same room, on the same team? So on May 4th, we're still unified and working together, believing for God to do something really significant in our city outside of just May 3rd.
All right, so it seems like, yeah, they should, all these churches should be on the same team. We don't always see that play out. So how do you, your perspective, Jason, I'd love to hear yours too, Chris, but from a local lens, how do you keep it grounded on what the mission is and focused on staying unified?
I think it requires leaders to be humble, to walk in true humility. But I think you keep it around what's sacred, man, which is prayer, worship, communion, things like that. And not muddy the waters with style. You know, there's a lot of churches got different styles of like, well, we sing this way or whatever. I think, man, you just keep it real. It requires, one, that shepherds be humble and be like, hey, I'm not building an empire, I'm part of a kingdom. And then two, to be like, you know what, I put what I prefer to the side, and you know what? You might sing different than me. You might like songs that are different than me, but I can still cheer you on. I can still pray for you. When lost people are found at your church, I can still celebrate it, not see it as competition. And I think if we just keep Jesus at the center of this, I think we'll see a lot more unity.
Yeah. So, and I'd love to hear your perspective too, but I know unity doesn't happen unless there's some diversity. How do you bring diverse crowds together to be part of this?
Well, there's the old saying, keep the main thing the main thing. So there's two things that are overarching principles of our revival. Number one, we want it to look like heaven. This isn't an old white guy's revival. We're going to have black preachers and Latino preachers and Hispanic preachers and Asian preachers, young people, old people. We want it to look like what heaven's going to look like. That's number one. Number two, we tell people this is everybody from the Presbyterians to the Pentecostals. We can throw aside the little, is speaking in tongues real? And we can throw away what age do you baptize your child? On that day, we're going to focus on the main thing, and that's the one thing that brings us all together. Black, white, Hispanic, young, old, male, female. It's about Jesus.
Yeah. So I know the reason that I reached out to you about this, hey, big event coming here, and people are going to see it not probably just across the country, but maybe even worldwide. What are some of the economics to it? Is Jacksonville positioned to make it easy for a big event like this to happen? What are some of the economic impact that we might see here in May and maybe beyond, like we're talking about with Jason?
Well, if you think about it, number one, you have the day of, right? We're paying to rent the stadium. And by the way, VyStar has been amazing to work with. So there's that day of impact. But economically, in my book, The Coming American Revival, I broke down different chapters. What would revival look like in education? What would it look like in media? What would it look like in politics? And what would it look like in business? So what happens if business people start taking those Christian values and applying them to their business? They become better at customer service. They become better at employee retention. They become better at all these kinds of things. But here's the other way that it impacts the rest of the city. What happens when they drive past food banks all the time, never make a contribution? They drive by an orphanage and never pray for that orphanage. All these different kinds of things. Now, when you come alive and you're really living those values out, you will make an economic difference by these donations to the charities and things around you. You'll make different buying choices, all those kinds of things. So people look at it as a spiritual event, but I really believe that what happens in us spiritually plays itself out in our education, in our consumption of media, in our businesses, in our political choices. And so whether it's affecting those others or business, I think that there really will be an economic impact on the city.
Yeah, Jason, I think you can attest to this, but I've seen it in the 15 years I've been in town. People of Jacksonville do respond to those calls to help out when they can.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate your point. Do you see that as happening because of what you guys are going to do on May 3rd?
Yeah, I mean, I think God has His hand on our city. And I'm not just saying that because I pastor in the city, but I think about Lydia in the book of Acts, man, the woman of purple cloth. I mean, she financed Paul's and them's missionary journeys. And I think there is very generous people in the city that God's going to use. He already is, but I think even in a greater capacity, I think we're going to see just a sweeping wave of generosity in our city for the impact of the kingdom of God here and afar.
Jason, let me stay with you, and then Chris, maybe I have you wrap up here. But between now and May 3rd, what's one practical step that you want Jacksonville listeners of the podcast here, what's a step you want them to take?
Now, I want pastors to get connected with us, because if we can get pastors to get connected and they can hear the heart of why we really want to do this, I think they'll get their church behind it. And I think May 3rd, man, when we gather around the presence of God, we could see something incredible happen where only God can get the glory. And so for me, it's like I want to see the church get connected to what God has ordained for May 3rd.
Yeah. Chris, your perspective?
You know, we don't want this to be an event. I could have come down here, rented the stadium, spent a bunch of money on marketing, filled the stadium, and left. But we want this is why we've been taking a year. We want it to leave a lasting impact among the church community, and then the church community as they serve their greater community. And that's our whole goal. I tell our steering committee all the time, and we have some amazing people on the steering committee. We have the former president of Promise Keepers on our steering committee, former chair of the Billy Graham Crusade. I tell them all the time, our number one goal is on May 4th to be able to look at each other and say, wow, look what God did.
All right, so May 3rd, this is when Revival 250 is happening, promoted as America's 250th anniversary revival event. The live stream nationally is going to be happening, and it's going to be at VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena. Chris Widener, this sounded like your idea, and it's happening. And Jason Masters from Bold City Church, thanks for being our guest today.
Thanks for having us.
All right, thank you for tuning in and listening here on This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition. New episodes come out every Thursday at 9 a.m.